the KMNN studios, this is the Kids Morning News Network.
Good morning, everybody. It's August 7th, 2024, the 220th day of the year. I'm Alex in the KMNN studio in New York. Welcome to the 100th episode of the Kids Morning News Network podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We've got more than 7,500 downloads, and it's just great to think of you out there listening and hopefully enjoying the podcast. I've heard from some of you, but I'd love to hear more about what you like and what you don't. You can send me a message through the link in the show description or email me at kidsmorningnews@gmail.com. And in honor of the 100th episode, I want to take a walk down memory lane and recap my 100 favorite episodes of the Kids Morning News Network. First, episode 1. Second, episode 2. Third, episode 3. Okay, that's enough of that. On with the show. In today's Olympic update, Team USA has 79 medals, 21 of them gold. American runner Cole Hocker shocked the field by taking the gold medal in the men's 1,500-meter race. He was not favored to win, but he did, and he broke the Olympic record, which has stood since 2021. He's just the fourth American to win gold in that event. And Team USA wrestler Amit Elor won a gold medal. She is 20 years old, which makes her the youngest Olympic gold medalist ever in U.S. wrestling, and just the third female American wrestler to win a gold medal at the Olympics. Past couple of days have been pretty quiet for Team USA, but there will be more action coming up, and I will have an update for you on Friday. You know that here on the Kids Morning News Network, we love a good adventure story. Over the past 100 episodes, we've talked about the first people to fly planes, sail boats, go to space in rockets, and even ride a unicycle the length of Ireland. Well, here's a good adventure story we haven't heard yet that happened today, August 7th, back in 1896. This is the day that two clam diggers from New Jersey arrived on the shore of France after rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Yep, they were the first people to row across an entire ocean, and they did it in a regular little wooden rowboat. It was 18 feet long, which is like 3 grown men lying end to end on the floor. Not very big. Didn't have any kind of cabin, and all the modern stuff we like? Nope, none of that. It took 55 days, almost 2 months. Can you imagine sitting in a rowboat out in the open for 55 days? And being in that dinky little rowboat in the middle of the ocean? In a storm? Well, the two guys who decided that was a good idea were named George Harbaugh and Frank Samuelson. They were originally from Norway, but they had both moved to New Jersey, where they dug clams out of the sand for a living. That's a hard job, and I guess they figured rowing a boat across an ocean couldn't be much harder. Plus, they figured they'd be famous and get rich from giving speeches about the trip. Kind of like 1800s influencers. Before social media, you really had to work hard to be an influencer. They spent their life savings building the rowboat and packed it with water, canned meat, crackers, coffee, and hundreds of eggs. They wore wool clothes, and over those oilskins, which were kind of like old-timey rain gear, which was made from canvas soaked in oil to make it waterproof. They also brought a piece of canvas to sleep under. And they tied themselves to the boat and had handles installed on the outside on the bottom in case it rolled over. Which was smart because they ran into some crazy storms and the boat did roll over. They lost their plates. Yeah, they brought plates and their pots and pans. Their stove didn't work, so they ate raw eggs until they lost those, too. Passing ships asked them if they wanted to be rescued, but they always said no, although they did get restocked with water and food that had washed overboard. A few days out from New York, a giant shark bit one of the oars and then hung around the boat for a day or two, probably waiting for a snack. Well, after 2 months of rowing all day and sleeping 3 hours at night, they took turns. One would sleep for 3 hours, the other one would stand watch to make sure they didn't get run over by any ships. And yes, they almost did get run over by ships. But in the first week of August, they reached land in England. They got out of the boat and they could barely walk. They were hungry and sore, but they said they would make it to France, so they got back in their little boat and headed back out on the sea again. Finally, on this day, August 7th, George and Frank made landfall in France. It was an amazing adventure, and it was 70 years before anyone else rowed across the Atlantic. And even though it's been done more than 500 times now, their speed record wasn't broken for 114 years. And even then, when someone went faster, it took a team of 4 rowers to do what George and Frank did. No boat with 2 rowers has made that journey faster than George and Frank. It's riddle time. Monday's riddle was, I can run but never walk. I have a mouth but never talk. I have a head but never weep. I have a bed but never sleep. What am I? The answer, a river. Today's riddle, what is orange, has a green hat, and sounds like a parrot? What is orange, has a green hat, and sounds like a parrot? Give you the answer on Friday, but make sure you follow or subscribe to the Kids Morning News Network podcast so you don't miss it. Well, we haven't done an update on the Starliner spacecraft in a while. That's because it's still in the same place, docked to the ISS. You may remember that Starliner blasted off on June 5th, almost exactly 2 months ago, and it carried a crew for the first time, 2 NASA astronauts. Even though they were only supposed to be in space for a few days, they're still up there. Wait a minute, 2 people on a journey in a little craft for 2 months? This is just like the guys who rode across the Atlantic, but in space. Well, Starliner has some helium leaks. Helium is a gas that the spacecraft uses in its thrusters. NASA says it's safe for the astronauts to ride back to Earth in it, but being in space lets them do tests to help solve the problem that they couldn't do on Earth. The astronauts, Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, are both test pilots, and they've both been in space before, so they say they're not complaining about the unexpected stay on the ISS, and they have plenty to do while they're there. Meanwhile, NASA is getting ready to bring its next crew to the ISS. Some reports say that Williams and Wilmore may come home on that rocket instead, and the Starliner may come back to Earth empty. We'll keep an eye on it. In the weather today, rain on the East Coast and along the High Line in the Badlands, that's Montana and North Dakota, going down into the northern plains. Also possibly rain around the Four Corners region. In the southern Great Plains, it'll be hot. Also in the Inland Empire in California. In the northern corners, Pacific Northwest and Maine, it should be really nice. All right, well, that's the 100th show. Thank you very much for listening. Hey, if you want to listen to show 101, make sure you follow or subscribe, whichever one your podcast player lets you do, to the Kids Morning News Network podcast. I will be back on Friday, and I hope you are too. From the KMNN Newsroom, for the 100th time, this is Alex, signing off.